Hello, hi, good evening, everybody. Assalamu alaikum. So we're going to get started. Today's our session on careers in engineering. My name is Zohaib Kumar. I'll be the moderator today. We have a number of guest speakers, but before I turn it over to them, just wanted to start with, of course, the name of Allah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So what we wanted to do is, let's start with introductions. My name is Zohaib Kumar. I'm the moderator. I'll turn it over to Asin. Asin, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. My name is Ahsan Salim. I currently work at National Grid. I used to work at New York State DOT at Long Island, but I graduated from Hofstra University. I have a dual bachelor's. I also have another bachelor's degree from City College. And I just completed my master's from Farmingdale. A fun fact about myself, something about myself is that I just completed my master's program, but I'm also becoming an scholar, Islamic scholar, alim on the side. So that's really good because depending on the type of job you have and the amount of hours that you have to put in, you do get time on the side for Deen as well.
MashaAllah. Thank you, Asin. I'll turn it over to Rahat. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Rahat Ahmed. I went to Brooklyn Technical High School, and I graduated my bachelor's in City College of New York, same as Hassan. I'm currently a senior project manager at AKRF Engineering. That is my firm, and I have been with them for the last 6 years. A fun fact about myself is I love to travel. Alhamdulillah, I've been blessed. I've visited 8 countries, and I love to experience the culture of each country that I go to.
MashaAllah. Thank you, Rahat. I'll turn it over to Brother Zohaib Alvi.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I'm Zohaib Alvi. I'm actually the owner and principal of Z Engineering in Lindenhurst. I graduated back in 2008 from SUNY Farmingdale, where I got my dual bachelor's, and I'm now an adjunct professor there. I'm a forensic engineer. I'm also an architectural and structural engineer, and my company focuses on mainly engineering failures and accidents, but we also focus a lot on the preservation of existing buildings. And typically when I'm not engineering, I enjoy playing and designing board games.
MashaAllah. Thank you, Zohaib. And Huria?
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. My name is Huria. I went to Queens College, did a major in computer science with concentration in mathematics. I'm currently a software engineer at JP Morgan Chase. A fun fact about myself is that I like Brazilian martial arts and sort of practicing that.
MashaAllah. Thank you, Huria. All right, so let's get started. Let's start off with the basics, right? What is engineering? Everybody hears this term. People think of a guy in a construction site or an architect building something. What does engineering mean? What are the different types of engineering? And what does it mean to work in the field of engineer and call yourself an engineer? So let's start with Asin first.
Oops, I was on mute there. Okay, so yeah, engineering is basically, when you talk about engineering, a lot of people think it's just math and science, right? Well, not particularly true. I would say, especially in the US, especially in New York specifically, engineering can be management, right? You're managing people, or you're managing something like construction management, right? One thing that is very, very important that we will discuss today is, there's 3 type of engineering in, my head. What I have seen is, there's design, there's construction, and there's also technical aspect of engineering, right? Which can also include inspection as well. But this design and construction is the most important thing, I believe. And in between it, everybody tries to see the good picture of design, that you're only in the office, right? And construction, you're only in the field, right? So you just have to basically decide what you want to do. So again, with the engineering field, as you'll see today with all our professionals, that it is, basically what you want to do, right? Rather than what you can get, because you can wake up in the morning, right, and go to your work, and you probably won't like it, right? Which happened to me in the beginning in my first job. So that's why I had to change it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Asin. Does Rahat, Zohaib, Huria, do you guys want to add anything to the concept of what people should think about? Think about a high school student graduating. Go ahead, Zohaib.
So it's funny because finding a definition for engineering is something I've been pursuing lately. So far, the best definition I have come up with is, in short, that it's humankind finding solutions to overcome their burdens. It can be anything from solving basic survival needs, such as how to store food, transport water, build habitable structures. But it can be used to solve more advanced needs as well, which is everything from conveying energy, designing of safe roadways for higher speed travel, designing new systems of communication for remote work, as we're doing right now, or even development of automation and artificial intelligence so we can hopefully pursue more meaningful and creative work.
Okay, great. Huria, Rahat, do you guys want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so sort of just to piggyback off what you said, the technical aspect of it, I would definitely say, from my perspective, seems to be sort of a lot more focusing of like problem solving and building blocks of like how you resolve a puzzle, right? So you mentioned automation and artificial intelligence, right? So those things, I feel like in light of engineering, I would say like it's sort of finding small puzzle pieces that all come together to solve a bigger picture. Yeah, so that's what I would have to add.
Okay, great. Rahat, do you want to add anything?
To sum it up, my basic definition for myself, it's anything that would help civilization, continue on, grow, or make it easy for someone just to, go about their day. It could be of buildings or roadways or airports or anything else, but anything that helps civilization move forward, make everyone's daily life a little bit better. So there's many different kinds of engineering, but for myself, that's the basic definition I would give.
Okay, great. No, that's helpful, guys. And the benefit of that is now you can see different people's perspectives on how they interpret engineering and what they've seen in the field. So you can see it's not all one term. The next thing I wanted to move on to is, what about college? Let's say someone wants to go become an engineer. Do they have to go to college? Is there an alternative to going to college where they can become an engineer? I'll turn it over to Asin first.
Yeah, so especially in the US, right? Again, I'm not sure about every single type of engineering, but um, the type of engineer I am, civil engineer, right? And I have structural background as well. You definitely need a degree, right? Uh, for what reason? The main reason is that if you go to apply for a job, right? A well sophisticated job, they are gonna ask you for a degree, right? And they're gonna confirm it, or they're gonna check it that that degree is valid, right? Now, saying that, there are jobs that you can work at without a degree, right? But again, those won't be really engineering jobs, right? You usually call them more of like I don't want to give them a technical name, but it's more of like an inspection type of thing, right? So I've seen people who have done inspection work without degrees.
Okay, great. Rahat, do you want to add anything to that?
Yes, I totally agree. In this country, you really need that. At the end of the day, it's a piece of paper, but it shows that there's so much more behind that piece of paper, that you put the work and effort into it to get your degree. And when you go for a job and they want to see, like, what qualifies you, someone else that doesn't have a degree. So definitely you need to get a degree, and it'll help you on later in life when you take exams and licensing and whatnot. You need to show that you have a degree and you graduated from an accredited college with engineering degree.
Okay, great. So before I turn it over to Zohaib and Huria, I'll modify the question. In terms of getting a college degree, is it traditionally going to be a 4-year course, or is there an option for a 2-year associate's course or a certification that somebody can get, an alternative to getting a full 4-year degree? So I'll turn it over to Zohaib first.
So as far as I remember, in New York State, there is a path to become an engineer solely by virtue of experience. There are currently legislation that's sitting in the House and the Senate in New York State, that's going to make it a requirement to have a bachelor's degree in order to practice engineering. So sooner or later, it's going to become a requirement. But up until for the time being, you can still kind of have things like 12 years or 15 years of experience and still sit for the PE.
Okay, great. And then Huria?
So I think this is where it slightly differs for software engineers and the technical perspective versus other engineering. A degree is very valuable, but I think when it comes to software engineering, you can make it without a degree, with a high school degree, and then without a college degree specifically, if you have projects to show for it. So if you've worked on a lot of personal projects, you've built out websites, apps, and if you have all of those, maybe in a GitHub repo, a lot of the companies will actually just look at what you have to offer, the skills that you have, and won't necessarily look for a degree. But with that being said, there are a lot of companies that are traditionally looking for at least a 4-year degree in computer science, in software engineering. But there's also a pathway for folks that aren't able to get that degree.
Okay, I have one more follow-up question I'll ask in relation to this, and I'll just throw it up. Just put your hand up and start speaking to avoid speaking over each other. What are your thoughts on, is there a requirement or an expectation that in addition to a basic bachelor's degree, as many of you have recommended, that someone should get a master's or sit for a certain exam to get a certification? I think you mentioned the term PE before. Could you speak a little bit about what that is and those additional considerations?
So certain engineering fields that don't have industrial exemptions require a professional engineering license, which is what PE stands for. In order to earn your PE, you have to have typically a degree in experience, but before you can sit for the PE, you have to take the FE exam in order to earn your EIT, which is engineering training. So that's a typical path for a more technical engineer, such as structural, civil, waterways, roadways, and even depending on which field you're in, certain software engineers, they like seeing it now too. I remember talking to somebody at IBM who was saying that they look for software PEs now for some of the higher up roles.
Okay, mashallah. So what we're hearing is generally if you want to get into field in engineering, your goal should be at a minimum probably to search for, try to get a good bachelor's degree. Then after the bachelor's degree, it's these 2 additional examinations that you mentioned, the EIT and then the PE. Is that accurate? Okay, perfect. So let's talk a little bit about each of your fields and like the job outlook for each of those fields. Are they growing? Are there a lot of jobs? Is there a lot of demand for the field at each of your respective engineering fields? So I'll turn it over to Asim first.
Yeah, so just to piggyback on what Brother Zohaib said, Zohaib Alvi, just want to post something up there. As you guys see, there's a lot of people who don't know actually that website, right? That website is the website where you apply for your FE, right? Again, this is not more of like just applying, right? They check you first and they send you an email or like a notification that you can sit for it, right? So they have to confirm that you can sit for it. It's not like you just apply for exam and then you could just do that. So that's something that I wanted people to know, because I met a lot of engineers who don't even know about that website, right? They're students, college students, but they don't know about that website. That's a very, very important website, right? In addition to your question, which you're asking, in my field, right, what I see is something that I'm going to tell you now, and I'm sure all of you will agree, right? I'm a civil engineer, but I have done mechanical work, I have done electrical work, I have done structural work, right? So, and I've done construction management work, right? So I've done 3, 4 different type of work with just civil engineer degree, right? How is that possible? With the civil engineer, I'm a little biased about it, but civil engineering, when you get that degree, they expect you to know everything, kind of thing, right? Now, you don't have to be expert in mechanical engineering, but like National Grid, for example, right? 90% of our engineers are mechanical there, right? Mechanical or electrical. I'm in that department where we only have 3 or 4 civil engineers who handle every single thing of like, New York, basically, right? So again, in my field, I would say, right, civil engineering is something, definitely if you're thinking about like engineering, right, civil engineering is something that you should definitely look at.
All right, Rahat.
Myself, I'm a civil engineer. My work is mainly focused on roadway jobs and reconstruction for the city. As Brother Assad said, civil, there's more smaller topics, and you can get in civil. There's water resources, environmental, geotechnical. So there's a broader aspect with this umbrella under civil engineering. Um, as myself, I did water environmental in college, but I didn't really enjoy that a little bit. So I moved more towards roadway transportation, which is my work focuses on that. And I'd say it's a very growing industry because there's roadways everywhere. You need a road to travel anywhere in the country or in the world. And with a degree from in America, you can travel abroad and you work there as well. I have a lot of friends that also moved to like Dubai and Qatar or are working with their degrees that they obtained in New York City. As Brother Hassan said, there's more than just buildings and roadways that you could do with a civil degree. There's the natural energy field as well, water resources. But I feel like there's always a demand for civil engineers because it's just not one thing you can do with your degree. There's so many things that you can do with it, and I believe it's growing, and the job is in demand for more civil engineers out there.
Great, thank you guys. So both of you are saying if you're interested in trying to figure out which engineering field has a good amount of jobs that's growing, civil is one of those engineering fields you can consider.
Yep.
Zohaib, your thoughts on your engineering field and the job market?
I agree 100% with Hassan and Rahat. Civil engineering is a huge umbrella, and there's hundreds of specialties under it. And it's a good way to try out a little bit of everything, especially while you're in college, to see what you really like. I'm going to talk specifically from a forensic engineering aspect. A lot of it is failure analysis, and things fail all the time. So as long as things are breaking, as long as things are deteriorating, forensic engineering does work out there, and it's actually it's a growing field because there's a lot of people who need this type of system. There's not a lot of people who do it. So there's a lot of good job prospects out there, especially with a lot of the larger forensic engineering firms. Regarding historic reconstruction and building preservation, unfortunately a lot of the infrastructure and buildings within the United States, and especially the Northeast and New York City, are deteriorating. They do need a lot of work in order to keep them standing up straight, so that work is always there as well.
Okay, great, thank you, Zohaib. Huria, your field?
So for software engineering, I definitely say it's a growing field. As long as there are apps, there are websites, there's always going to be a demand for software engineers, no matter where you go. I would say it's such a wide. I guess there's so much that you can do within software engineering. You can be a web mobile developer. You can literally become a machine learning engineer and sort of segue from there because technology is huge. Personally, I started out in the cybersecurity field doing attack analysis, like penetration testing, ethical hacking, those sorts of things. And then I segued my career into becoming a web and mobile developer for Chase. So there's a lot of, I guess, areas for where they're demanding software engineers, where they want technical folks. So I feel like the job market's just going to be booming.
And then, Huria, I know the other engineering fields they mentioned, there's certain exams you can get. Is there anything specific for software engineering that you would recommend that are equivalent exams or taking those same exact exams that they mentioned?
So it's going to be slightly different for software engineering, just because it's each area is very different. So for, I guess, if you're focusing on tech and cybersecurity, there are definitely exams like you can take that are SANS certifications or like Security Plus certifications and those things. So you can sort of pivot your career in that direction. But for software engineering specifically, I would say there isn't exactly like one exam that you take to sort of become certified, like they've mentioned for civil engineering. There's quite a bit. Like there are different like Udemy courses that you can get certifications from that sort of count. So I don't think there's going to be like a one size fits all for software engineering.
Okay. And then just to circle back, thinking about high school, college students, there's one question that came in, and I want to address this one first from Raham Dean. The question was around design or construction field for newly graduated students. Which one has more scope? So do Rahat, Asen, Zohaib, do you guys want to jump in and share your thoughts on that? Either of you, any of you guys can go ahead.
Sure, I could go first. Design and construction field. Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I think when I graduated, right, I could just speak to how I was. I wanted to be in design, right? Why? Because I liked office work, right? Office work are often called backdoor, right? Behind the door that you don't know what's going on, right? That kind of work. Um, but I remember when I got my scholarship from one of the firms, they actually one of the organization, not firm. I met one of the guys, one of the CEO, not the CEO, the co-CEO of WSP, right? It's a very big company actually in New York. And he told me one thing, right? I told him, I'm like, listen, my uncle works for WSP, so I was like, oh, I applied for WSP. I want to be an intern here. I'm graduating next year, so what should I do? I want to be in design. He's like, what are you doing right now? I'm like, oh, I got an internship in construction. He said, amazing, do construction first. I'm like, what? He's like, do construction first, because when you come to design, you will know how the construction people feel or how it's done in the field, right? Because in the design, what happened is there's so many people who are in design from the beginning, right? They have no idea how it works out in construction, right? Out in the field, right? So they just put it on the paper, and then the contractor look at it and they're like, what is this? We can't build this, right? So that's why I feel like construction is very important, right? It's kind of hard to go from design to construction. I feel like it's easier to go from construction to design.
Great points. Zohaib or Rahat, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I agree 100% with Essen. My first job out of school was working for a contractor, looking at how things were being conducted in the field, and that gives you a lot more insight when it comes finally time to design something, because you can put whatever you want on paper, but if it's not buildable, then it's useless.
Great, thank you. Rahat?
Totally agree. To piggyback off what the two brothers said, in design, it's on paper. You don't know if it could be built or not. If it looks good, maybe you can get past three managers. But then when it's time to get built, you get RFIs, requests for information. It's like, how do we build this? We just see this line here. What does this line represent? For myself, I'm in the design field, but it's always good to go out and experience how things are constructed. So if you're designing something, go on YouTube to see how it's actually built, to see that, hey, maybe my design won't really work out, but it's a learning process. As we go through, if you design something wrong, you will learn about why it can't be built in a construction field. But it's easier to, like, if you're in design, you can get your hands on more different projects or whatnot. We can work on multiple projects at once, as opposed to you're in construction, you're in the field working on this project. So in design, to be a little biased, you get to see more different types of projects easier. But in hand to hand, both go hand in hand, and you need experience from both construction and design to be a well qualified engineer.
Great, thank you guys. There was another question that came in from Hashim Pervez related to, he has a degree from Lahore, the University of Lahore, and he has a bachelor's in electrical engineering from there. He's researching, and he saw that there's a university with a non-ABET accredited, which is not accredited, and you can see the question on the screen. And he's basically asking, what are the steps that he should take to get to the FE exam? So can you guys, from your own practical experience, share any advice that you would have for him or other people who are international engineer, but now they've transitioned to the US and are trying to get their footing? Asin first.
Sure. So what I know about this question is actually I think I personally know this student. So the way to answer this, right? Yes, correct. There is, if you go to NCEES, the website that I was showing you before, it does say somewhere that that the university needs to be ABET accredited, right? But it also says but right after that, right? What it says is that if you get evaluated, your degree gets evaluated by the NCEES, right? Similar to when you're sitting for your FE exam, you still have to get it evaluated, right? Um, and they approve it, then you can sit for FE exam, and that is also on NCE's website. Like I said, that website, you can, particularly this person, I believe Hashim, right? I can if you can reach out to us, right, we can definitely help you with that. There is, again, that website does explain something about evaluation for foreign students. Um, I know that the University of Lahore. Again, I don't know much about it, but I'm sure it's probably not ABET accredited, along with a lot of other universities, right? So the way to do it is this way. Other than that, there's always other type of work in engineering, right? Where you don't need degrees, or there are some contractors, right? They don't require a degree as well. Like I'm saying, not every contractor, but there are some. So once you have your experience, right? A lot of people stop looking at a degree. That's how I think about it, especially in civil engineering.
Okay, perfect.
Also, sorry.
Go ahead, Zoe. You want to add?
Also, in New York State specifically, if you have a non-ABET accredited degree and you don't want the NCES to evaluate it, New York State will evaluate it for you as well.
Perfect. No, that's really good advice. And we have our email address, muslimyouthmentors@gmail.com. You can always email us, and then we will help connect you with our mentors that come up on our sessions. Perfect. So let's keep going.
Also, just wanted to add one thing. I think this is something very important website as well. For especially also Brother Hashim, he can save that as well. I believe that's where you were talking, right, Brother Zuhaib Alvi? Is that the website you were talking about?
That's the link to the New York State Education Department's website for PE and land surveying licenses. So all the information regarding application requirements and procedures is on that link.
Yeah, even FE is there, I believe. Yes, right? I think FE is there as well. Correct. Okay.
Perfect. And even like I'm Miss EPA, even we will go to the New York State website and it will refer us to the guidance of what type of courses you need, what type of certifications you need. They have FAQs up there. So the New York State or whatever state you're in, that they usually have a career website that will help on getting certifications and help you with that process as well. And they even usually have a phone number you can call for specific questions around, is this valid, or what does this mean, or this interpretation of the rule. But that's great. Thank you. So we talked a little bit about the basics of what is engineering. We talked a little bit about how those careers are growing. We talked a little bit about some certification, school requirements. Is there any advice that you guys have that you've seen practically? Let's say someone's in college, they're like, what is something I can do to get ahead? Is there a specific program out there? Is there an internship out there? Is there a specific work program where I can get experience working in the field while I'm still in college? Any advice from you guys on those types of programs? So I'll start with Asin.
I'll just say one thing, AutoCAD, right? I've seen a lot of engineers, especially in National Grid, right? I'm not putting anybody down. In National Grid, I've seen a lot of people who are engineers, right? Professionals. They don't know AutoCAD, right? So they go to designers. We're happy that we have designers, right? The whole department of design. But the thing is, if you don't know AutoCAD, you're gonna have your hands stuck, right? Meaning you're gonna wait for a designer to design or draft up your design that you or changes, right? So like I said, AutoCAD is very important, and I feel like, again, I don't know many programs. I know there are some even in Long Island that did teach AutoCAD, right? But again, other brother Zohaib or Rahad, brother Rahad can speak to that.
Rahat, go ahead.
Yes, I totally agree. AutoCAD is like the basic tool that we use to design, for the city. But there's also Civil 3D, microstations programs that you can learn. And my advice to college students is, give up your time, give up the summer to learn a skill that will be beneficial to you in the future. CAD is the most basic. There's YouTube tutorials, there's programs, there's classes that you could pay online or go to in class and learn how to do it, because you will need, like, this is a stepping stone. CAD is the stepping stone for design. And although there's internships, a lot of firms, they offer internships over the summer, even if it's paid or unpaid internships. I would say, give up your summer and just do it. My company as well, we do internships over the summer, and then eventually by the time, if they like what they're doing, they get hired full time. I myself, my first job was because of an unpaid internship with the DEP that looked good on my resume. So that's one advice I can give to college students.
And then before we go to Zohaib, you mentioned internships, getting them over the summer. Right now, we're already in June. Is there still a chance for any students to get internships this summer? Or any advice for applying to internships? Are there certain websites that are for the engineering field that are better than others?
Companies are still hiring interns over the summer. It's June, but they're still looking to hire. If you Google there's top firms, I think there was a link up here before regarding the top major design firms. You can look up like Langen. I think Brother Hassan, he had that link. There you go. You know, Jacobs. We work closely with ACOM, Jacobs. There's HDR. We work with those firms as well. WSP. Stantec. If you search them up and they go into their career section, you know, if you send them an email letting them know that you're college grad or, you know, looking to intern, you know, they'll be happy to hire. Even if it's unpaid, I would suggest, you know, still do it, and companies will be happy to hire someone which they're not paying for. But it looks good, and you learn a skill over the summer as well.
Great, thank you. Zohaib?
Yeah, CAD without a doubt. I started learning CAD back in high school. But in addition to CAD, I'd say learn BIM as well, because most companies are going the BIM route anyways, and all of that goes hand in hand. I'm going to take a bit of a left turn at people who are taking engineering classes or an engineering program in school. One thing I would suggest is to deviate from engineering a little bit and take some humanities or other electives in school, just to see how the greater world around them connects to engineering. I don't care, you know, what it is, whatever your interest may be, just it helps to know what the world is like. Otherwise, you exist in a vacuum and your work is no longer relevant to the greater good. In addition, one thing that a lot of students seem to forget is that there's a lot of organizations out there, and most of those organizations offer free or low-cost memberships to join. Whether it's, you know, the ASCE, American Society of Civil Engineers for Civil Engineers, NSP for National Society of Professional Engineers, ASME for the mechanical engineers, or IEEE for electrical engineers, and I'm sure Horia knows other organizations related to software engineering. Join them while you're in school. They offer a lot of good courses, they offer a lot of good education, and they also offer opportunities for you to network, because engineering isn't just technical. If you want to start making it up later down the road, you have to get to know people as well.
Great, thank you. Horia?
Hi. Like you mentioned about organizations, there's definitely one for software engineering as well. It's called ACM, Association of Computer Machinery, and that's definitely a great network to be a part of. You can help land internships. There's a lot going on there, so I would definitely check out that space. Specifically geared towards folks that are in software engineering, I guess pathways, I would say hackathons are a great way to go. Hackathons are basically like 24-hour coding challenges where you code and you build out either a website, a mobile app, and it's basically a testament to what your skill set looks like. So a lot of times that's where we do recruiting. I myself got my internship through a hackathon, which turned into a full-time opportunity afterwards. It's called the Code for Good Hackathon by JP Morgan, but Chase is just one of the few companies that offer it. There are a lot. So if you literally look up hackathons near you in New York City, you can go attend those. Even if you don't have that high skill set, it's a great opportunity to learn, to meet people, to basically just like broaden your skill set, because a lot of times with computer science, we can be beholden to one language, but I think it's important to kind of just broaden your skill set a little bit and have a working knowledge with like Python, JavaScript, Java, C++, just like the whole, I guess I would try to aim for the whole full stack. So there's the link, it's gonna trigger below. And yeah, so that's the Code for Good Hackathon link that that you can use to go register for hackathons that happen throughout the States.
Great, thank you. Are there, with respect to these organizations, many people are shy about going to these networking events. Especially when someone's in a technical field, they feel like it's more important to have the technical knowledge. I think Zohaib mentioned it's important to network. Any advice from you guys around how to take advantage? People say network. You go to some of these events, sometimes people are shy to speak to other people. Any advice that you guys have for students or people who are recently going to graduate right now that are looking for their first job, looking for their internship, and that's what everybody tells them, network, but they're like, what does that mean? How do I do it? You know, I don't know, LinkedIn, Facebook, what should I be doing? So I'll turn it over to Asim first.
Yeah, I think you just said it. You just said the answer. LinkedIn, right? I have sent numerous messages while when I was graduating to a lot of people, even now, right? I guess working on the side, right? Since I'm very good at AutoCAD BIM, so I do work on the side, right? Do some extra work on the side. So LinkedIn is definitely the one. It's funny because a lot of students don't even know about LinkedIn, right? A lot of students don't even have a LinkedIn, or as I think Brother Zuhaib and Kamar and myself, we were talking about, a lot of people don't have a proper image or proper profile picture, right, on LinkedIn, right? Because it really matters, right? Or a bio, right? So I feel like rather than, trying to find events and going to the events, especially with the COVID, what's happening now, right? I feel like LinkedIn is something very, very important. And just to add on that, we also at Muslim Youth Mentors, right? We do events that are also in person, right? We've started this event, but we have done events that are in person where we actually do networking with a lot of our mentors. So that's also a great way to, like, meet these professionals and try to get jobs, basically, right? Because that's what everybody's looking for at the end of the day.
Great. Rahat?
Yes, totally agree. To have a professional looking LinkedIn goes a long way because people will look at your profile and recruiters will say, hey, this person's got so and so certifications. Let me email them about a certain job. One advice that I give to anyone that I meet, and I still do to this day, that someone gave to me and I share with anyone else, like, for example, when you go to job fairs, you meet all these people, you get a bunch of business cards, right? You'll have like 20, 30 business cards. At the end of the day, you don't remember who is who. So every time I get a business card, I write down in the back where I met them, when I met them, maybe something that'll help me remember myself, who is this person? When I go back home a week or later, 2 later, it's like, hey, remember we met so and so at this job fair, just following up about this job, whatnot. It helps me remember who actually I spoke to, because job fairs you speak to like 30, 50 people, you don't remember who is who at the end of the day when you just go home with 50 blank cards. That's one advice I give to anyone. And to this day, when I go to meetings, whatnot, when I get all these business cards from these people, I write down little fun fact about them, or where I met them, when I met them, maybe what they're wearing, to help me remember who they were.
That's a really great tip. Zohaib?
I do the same exact thing that Raha does with my business cards. As soon as I meet them, write something down. And as soon as they get home, email them. Thank you. It was nice to meet you. And this way you're in touch with them automatically. And I think that's the best icebreaker, just to show, look, hey, I know who you are. We met and I remembered you. And that opens a lot of doors by itself. I don't use LinkedIn that often. Essen knows this because I told him when he messaged me, I don't use LinkedIn, text me. But I tend to go to a lot of in-person events, just meet general people, share stories with them. We're not necessarily there for a job or for business. It's just good to have those connections. That's how I met a lot of my mentors as well. So if I want to pass something by them, if I run into, a particular issue, what would, someone who has 30, 40 years of more experience than me do in that same situation?
Okay. Horia?
So like everyone said, LinkedIn is a great way to connect. But if you are more of an in-person kind of of an individual, I would suggest going to a lot of conferences helped a lot. They helped me a lot. So things like Splunk conferences or like Black Hat, or depending on which area of tech you're interested in, you can always gear to like a conference in that, I guess, in that sector. So looking that up and sort of attending those conferences, meeting people, and as a couple of them have advised, accumulating business cards and then sort of writing down what you can remember them by. That's also something I do, and immediately emailing them, because I know if I wait too long, I'm probably going to forget. So sort of having that email chain going, and you can do touch base every now and then if you're working on something exciting, just to keep them in the loop so they kind of remember you. So when there are new opportunities that come up, you kind of stay in their mind that, oh, this person is interested in this, and you're sort of in the back of their mind that, hey, I can maybe shoot them an email about an opportunity that's come up. So that's definitely something that I recommend.
Great. I'll just add on 2 things. So one thing I think people ignore is I'm a college professor. I teach as an adjunct. So one of the things I always remind my students is your best network are the people sitting around you in the class, usually when you're in in-person class. Now it's all virtual and stuff. But don't ignore those people. A lot of people say, I don't want to deal with these people. Who knows what they're going to do with their career? You never know who that person ends up working in your class that's going to get a job at Google or at the top firm, right? So stay connected with those people on LinkedIn at a minimum. and because you never know where they're going to go, and you never know, you might end up working together. They say it's a small world, and once you get into the profession, you'll see many people say, oh yeah, I remember that kid was in my class, now he's on the other side, I need him to approve this contract or something like that. So those personal connections do make a big difference. So don't burn bridges as you graduate college. And the other thing I would say is your college professors are also a good guide and can be mentors to you. I personally have students come to me and they'll say, hey, professor, I want to do this. What's your advice about how to handle the situation? So even after they graduate, sometimes they'll reach out to me and they'll say, you know, I'm having this problem with this project and the supervisor, just personal one-on-one things. And if you can find good mentors, it doesn't have to be a professor. I'm just saying, don't ignore your professors. If you have a good relationship, reach out to them after college, even when picking a job, which if you have more than one offer, sometimes they can help you figure out which one would be the right firm for you, or any mentor can help you do that as well. So those are just two other things that I would throw out there. Next question, go ahead.
Just to emphasize what you said about not to ignore the people around you, I agree with that 100% because in college, with a lot of the folks that I went to school with, we kind of had a friend group that we would always study together, and then we graduated. And after we graduated, we actually helped each other find jobs. So there are folks at Google, at IBM, at Chase, at Bank of America, and we were able to give each other referrals and sort of like help each other out with where we would see a best fit. And so I agree 100% that you don't know where anyone will end up. So definitely keep in touch with people that you're in school with.
Absolutely great. So I think we're getting close to the end. We have about 18 minutes left. There's a few questions we have, but if anybody in the audience, you've been holding on waiting for a Q&A session, this is the time. Put your question out there, and we'll do our best to get through all the questions, so don't wait. In the meantime, while we're waiting for questions to come in, we'll just keep talking a little bit about the engineering field. What's the average hours like in your field, and what is the average pay like? So I'll turn it over to Asin first.
All right, thanks. So average hours, as I mentioned from the beginning, I was doing masters and doing Alim course at the same time. So I definitely had, not crazy hectic schedule. Again, the way I thought about it, right? You need to know what you want to do, right? Do you want to work for like a subcontractor or a consultant where you're gonna work a lot of hours, right? Or you want to be like a project manager where you're gonna whatever they're gonna pay you good money, but you're gonna be working a lot of hours, right? You gotta have your phone basically 24/7 with you, pretty much, right? Or you want to choose something like a job where like a government job, right? Where I was New York State DOT, or where I am right now, National Grid. It's like half government, half because we're still regulated by government. This kind of job, I do 40 hours a week, right? But just to be honest, sometimes what happens is like, let's say on a Monday, right? I'm not that busy. I don't have that many meetings. What happens is my day is very light. So, but on Tuesday, so on that day, I can maybe work 2 hours a week, 2 hours a day, right? But on other day, maybe like on Wednesday, I'm working like 10 hours, right? But it all adds up to 40 hours. That way I have more time for, obviously Dean and my other family related stuff.
Great. Rahat?
Yes, as Brother Hassan said, there's two different roads: the private sector and the public sector. I have a little bit of experience in both. The public sector is more kind of a little laid back, maybe a little bit because you're reviewing consultants' work. I think they do like generally 35 hours a week. And private sector is generally more 40 plus hours a week. You're generally working from 9 to 6, whatnot. But if you're, there's always overtime work. Managers want you to put in the hours so that you can meet the deadlines. As I can speak from experience, I've had to go in on Saturdays because some projects were poorly managed, or just the deadline was just so, coming up, we have to get it done. And speaking from experience, I did have to stay over one night at the office to meet the deadline for a project. But the higher ups were very thankful for that. But it can be stressful, the private sector. But that's where sometimes I feel like the higher pay raise is in the private sector. You're working more hours. It's a little bit more stressful compared to the private sector. But you get compensated for those hours that you put in.
Okay, great. Zohaib?
So in my case, as a business owner and as a forensic engineer, my hours are long and completely unpredictable. from a purely forensic aspect, a lot of it is disaster or accident based. So you could only have maybe 20 hours of work one week, but you could get called down to, let's say, Florida after a hurricane to work 15 hours a day for 4 days straight. So you really have to be prepared for anything. You have to be prepared to work from anywhere at any time. Our office is outfitted to work from anywhere in the world, wherever it's necessary at that time. Um, in terms of pay, I'm not going to talk about forensic pay. I'm going to talk about general engineering pay. I know the ASCE released their survey, and I think the average entry level salary, or the average median salary, excuse me, was around $64,000 a year, and it goes to 100 and 120 once you get your PE, and then of course, depending on your role, it goes higher than that as well.
Great, thank you. Maria?
So the hours are generally, like, I would say, it depends on what firm you're working for. If it's small, if it's big, that definitely depends on your role. But generally it's like 40 to 50-hour weeks. And then if you have releases coming up, then you would usually have to work weekends, overnights, just to make sure everything goes smoothly. If something breaks, then you're working a longer work day. You could be doing 12-hour work days, depending on how urgent the priority is and the fix needs to go in. So I think it kind of depends on how big the firm is, how many people you're working with. So that can really alter the hours you work. And also, generally, whenever there's a release, you're going to be working longer hours. So I would say between 40 to 55 hours a week.
And then with respect to pay, we'll start with you, and then we'll keep going around. Go ahead.
Gotcha. So I think as a beginner software engineer in New York City, you make between 70 to 100K. And then you kind of go up from there depending on what route you take. So you could be in cyber, you could be doing full stack, front end, back end, and then it sort of divides out from there.
Okay, perfect. And then Asin and Rahat, if you guys could share the pay ranges that you're seeing in your fields.
Yeah, so again, definitely agreed with Brother Rahat over there. So public sector much lower, right? Start off. I'm talking about start off, right? We're talking to students. So start off, you can expect, especially since I was at New York State DOT, depending on if you have your FE or you don't have your FE, right? You could think about like 55 to 56,000, right? Just the start for civil engineers. But as the grade goes up, you can make anywhere up from 56 to all the way up to like 85. And then when you have your PE, what Brother Zohaib said, yeah, it's more than that. In private sectors, you could start with like close to 80, right? I've seen that, right? But there's one thing that you got to be careful about. Anybody who's offering you close to like 90, right? And you're a brand new civil engineer, just be a little scared, right? Because you're going to be doing most likely a lot of drafting, right? Because again, they don't expect you to do design work, right? Or you're going to be doing a lot of boots on the ground, they call it, right? Construction, you just like out there, you're not going to like it, even if you're making that much money.
Great, thank you. Rahat?
No, I totally agree with the numbers that Brother Hassan said. Generally, you look for promotions every two years. You go from civil professional engineering 1 to P2 to become a senior manager. So promotions are generally two to 3 years. And if you have your PE license, that's a boost. It shows you that you're more marketable. You know what you're doing. As you said, start off probably around 60, 65, probably maybe 4% raise every year until you get your promotion, which is about maybe 10K, depending on what your firm is. But once you get your PE license, which is what design people in the engineering design field, that's their goal, to become a PE. It'll boost above 100K.
Perfect. So we have about 10 minutes left. I know we could go into each of your respective fields and spend 1 hour, 2 hours just talking about all the nuances about the field. So we don't have enough time for that. But what I did want to do is give each of you about 2 minutes. Can you, if you were to look at yourself in the eye and travel back in time and find yourself in college, what is the advice that you would give yourself, something that you wish you knew 5 years ago or 10 years ago, whenever you graduated? So maybe you guys can share any parting advice or wisdom. So I'll start with Asim.
Yeah, so a couple of things I'll definitely share. I started as a biomedical engineer, right? I went to City College, sat in the first class. Right away, I was like, this is not for me, right? So that's one thing you need to understand really quickly which engineering you want to do. If you really do want to do engineering, right? That's one thing, right? Because you can't do biomedical engineering and then all of a sudden, oh no, I want to do civil now, because you're gonna waste so much time. Second thing that was very important to me, like I mentioned in the beginning, I got my degree in City College, and then I also have a degree in Hofstra. So I have dual bachelors, right? I wish I knew about Hofstra from before. I would have just went to Hofstra, not go to City College, because I was going towards biomedical engineering. Then I went towards, oh, I want to be a doctor now. And then I'm like, oh, you know what, civil engineer is where I want to be, right? So at City College, I had a degree in psychology with pre-med, and I was going to med school at one point, but then, did a whole 360 or 180, you could call it, and went to engineering. One last thing I do want to definitely mention, since I have this time, you'll see this on the screen, right? Brother Rahat mentioned, and Brother Zuhaib Kamar asked a good question about even now, right? And let's say people are looking for internships, right? Or jobs, right? Where they should apply. These, I literally hand wrote them and I hand picked them because I have dealt with them, right? So if you have dealt with, let's say, Basilico, right? If you haven't worked with Basilico, you wouldn't know that, oh, if I apply for them, are they even going to call me? I know they will call you, right? Because they always need people, right? There are some companies who will always need people. So if there's any students here, parents who are looking to put their kids into like some kind of work, these companies are very, very popular, as in like they're not that big, but at the same time, they hire students, right? To do to work pretty much, right? Even if it's field work, doesn't matter, especially like OHLNA, right? That's another company. And one last thing, New York State DOT, why is it there? It's not a contractor, obviously. The reason it's there is, and I believe Brother Rahat and Brother Zohaib can agree on this, is there is a position called TCI, right? It's basically just an inspector, right? And they hire a lot of these, right? They need a lot of boots on the ground. You get hired with them, with New York State DOT, just apply to them on their website, and they will hire you, and you'll get a lot of good experience. The work is not that good, but the experience is really, really good, right? So, yeah. Anything else you want to add, Brother Rahat?
Can speak from experience because I have a contract based with New York State DOT. They're always looking to hire more people that could be out in the field. As you said, maybe the work may not be the greatest, but it'll help you gain experience about like maybe this is what you want to do for the rest of your life, or maybe this is not. So it can help you guide you a path to like these internships. If I could go back and speak to my younger self. From experience, I could say I was the quiet, shy kid that sat in the back, took notes, and left after class. Didn't speak to anyone. I didn't make a lot of friends. I didn't have a big networking group. And I realized, wait, all these people that are studying together, they're having better grades than me. Well, why am I kind of slacking in class? That's when I realized I needed to network more, aka just, be friendly with more people, make more friends, because usually other people may have textbooks or exams that you don't have that you can study off of, and you can work together and help you boost your grades in school. And I realized from that, after I graduated, a lot of my classmates we all worked in the same field. So we can hook each other with jobs, give references. I helped one of my friend's cousin land a job in my firm, so it looked good on me because I knew that person. So it's all about like who you know and keep in touch. Right now, like with this virtual world, LinkedIn is good to keep that relationship that you have with the people that you've made friends with. That's one advice I give myself. And for people that are going to take the FE and PE, one advice I give to others, because I know my friends that they did not take the FE after college and they regret it, because basically it's everything what you learned in college, it's on the FE. It's like a senior end of year exam. And a lot of my friends, they did not take the FE, so now they have to relearn things that we did in class 7 years ago. They regret not doing that. One advice: take the FE in your senior year of college. It'll go a long way, and you don't have to relearn everything again 4 years later.
Great, thank you. So, hey.
Yeah, that is 100%. You don't know how many people forget to take the FE after college. Just take it as soon as you can, because you will forget things. Even if you're taking the civil P, things like chemistry, biology, all that stuff is on the exam for you. You will forget that because you're never going to use it. So that's solid advice. Yeah, networking and again, joining organizations, the two things I would recommend anybody to do while they're still in college. start building those relationships now because they take many, many years to develop. Unfortunately, I started way after I graduated. Nobody ever told me or encouraged me to join everything else, and I wish they did because it would have made my life a little bit easier when it came to building a business.
Great, great, thank you, Horia.
So definitely about networking, that's definitely key. I think one advice that I would give is be open to all the opportunities that come your way and don't get discouraged. Like landing internships, you don't know what could be the connector for you. How I ended up with my first internship was because I was sitting in a room with interns who had nothing to do with what I was doing, but they were helping plan something like a hackathon, and I heard about it. And I was working in a completely different team. I was working, it was like a business oriented, I was working in investment banking at that time. It was sophomore year of college and I wasn't technical, but since I heard it, I thought I'd give it a shot and I applied. And in the meantime, I tried to learn languages, technical languages on my own, like coding skills. And when I went to that hackathon, I learned that that's what I wanted to do. Like I really enjoyed coding. And then I ended up changing up my major and then sort of just focusing on software engineering and then landing a job through that. So you never know what could land you where you are in life. So definitely be open to different opportunities. They don't necessarily have to be in your exact, I guess, career or major. But if it's something that you can learn from, you can meet people, and you think it's a good way to network, go for it. And don't be scared that you'll be the only person there. Like try new things.
Perfect. So one piece of advice that my cousin gave me that I always give to people is that he said even a 10-year-old can give you really great advice. So it doesn't hurt to ask people for their advice. You don't have to take everybody's advice, but it doesn't hurt to ask to learn from other people, right? So that's another piece of wisdom I'll throw out there. We have about 3 minutes left. I'll turn it over really to you guys because you guys are the experts. Is there anything else you want to leave as parting words of wisdom for the audience, for students, or a young professional? So I'll start with asking.
It's always me first. uh, okay, so like I said, right? Hours, right? You could put it as money. You could become a workaholic, right? It could be in any career, not just in engineering, right? Or you can, work certain amount of hours, right? Just know, is it money more important to you, right? Or is it family or deen or other part, right? Because we still have other priorities, right? For me personally, I take more effort into my deen and also my family. So where I am right now, I'm happy. One thing I want to definitely share, last year when we were getting our raises, one of my colleagues, actually a few of my colleagues mentioned, "Oh, we're not getting that much of a raise." And my response to them was, a couple of them was that just say thanks, right, to Allah that we at least have a job, right? That's the one thing that we got to think about. Forget, there's so many people who were losing jobs last year, right? So again, back to what I was saying is that you got to know where your priorities lie.
Anybody else?
So I kind of have something I want to say. So I would say in terms of jobs, don't start looking for a job when you need one. Even if you have a job, I'd say it's definitely good to always keep your options open, keep applying, just because it keeps your skills sharp. And also, you know what the market rate looks like, and you have something to go back to your manager with. So if you're being lowballed, if you're able to have that conversation that you're getting offers from other places and they're willing to pay you that much, you can use that to negotiate when it comes to end your reviews. You can use that to negotiate your bonuses and those things that you're getting external offers, and they can either match or go higher if they want to keep you. So you can only do those things when you're like interviewing on the side. It doesn't necessarily have to be actively, but passively looking, because you're always going to have options, and it's just a good way to keep your skills sharp and also like keep you on your toes.
Great. Zohe, Barahat, any other final pieces of advice with the 1 minute we have left?
I just want to say, don't stop learning. It doesn't have to be engineering related, like Essence saying he's pursuing his Alim course and everything else. Whatever passion you have or whatever passion you're starting to develop, keep pursuing it after you're done with your work as well, because you never know, what you'll learn. You never know what you'll like. Maybe 10 years down the road, you don't want to do engineering anymore, and there's something else that you enjoy doing even more. So always expose yourself to those new experiences.
Great. Thank you, Rahat.
One advice I would say is always ask questions. If you're not sure, from my experience, someone told me there's no such thing as a dumb question. Maybe just because you're not asking, somebody else may be scared to ask it, and you're confused or something. Always ask questions, because when we work with junior engineers, we can see that some of them may be too afraid to ask. So we ask on their end, like, do you understand what it is? Always ask questions, because there's always things to learn. Even when you have 20, 30, 40 years of experience, there's always more new things to learn. And don't be afraid to ask, because it just shows that you're willing to learn more. And don't, it can be scary a little bit, but you got to build up that confidence in yourself. And I think by asking questions is the best way to do that.
Perfect. And that puts us exactly at about 1 hour. So we wanted to thank everybody, all the speakers who joined us today. If anybody has any questions, you can reach us out. You can reach us at muslimyouthmentors@gmail.com. We'll connect you with the professionals. You can, if the professionals are okay, you can reach out to them on LinkedIn and try to connect with them directly. And then our next session will be 2 weeks from now. So not next week, the 18th, but the 25th, we'll have our next session. We're planning some other in-person events potentially, inshallah, and we'll keep everybody posted. So please like and follow us on Facebook and YouTube and all of that, and we'll keep you guys posted on the stuff that's going on. Thank you guys. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.